Oh, it's time for Legal AF After Dark. What is this fight that has broken out in public between MAGA and the Federalist Society? We all thought they were one and the same, but there are schisms and there are breakups that are in the works as Donald Trump attacks Leonard Leo. He, with $2 billion, shadowy organizations, more than 10 different entities that all helped get Donald Trump elected and get his federal judges confirmed, including at the United States Supreme Court. But now Donald Trump doesn't like the Federalist Society. Why? Because he can't control it. Because he doesn't like the fact that federal judges, including those that Trump appointed and that the Federalist Society recommended, are ruling against him. He doesn't think the Supreme Court and all the justices that he bought and paid for coming through the Federalist Society are protecting his agenda enough at the United States Supreme Court. He doesn't like that the MAGA conservatives are now, and the Federalist Society are now going after some of his new federal appointees for judgeships, like Emil Bove for the Third Circuit. Federalists don't like that appointment, and they'd let Donald Trump know it. And now he's gone back. He's not just biting the hand that fed him. He's trying to amputate it. I break it all down along with my Saturday podcast anchor, co-anchor Ben Meiselas on Legal AF. And here's a clip.
Let's get into it, Michael Popok, and talk about the kind of reaction to the fact that all these Trump-appointed judges have been ruling against Donald Trump because they're still following the law by and large. And, you know, this ruling by the International Trade Court really set Donald Trump off when he realized it was a Trump-appointed judge and a Reagan-appointed judge who joined with a Biden-appointed judge and said, it's illegal for you to tariff the entire world, citing the IEEA, the international, this emergency power.
IEPA.
IEPA. All right. So this is how Stephen Miller, Donald Trump's top advisor, responds to the question. It's a good question by CNN. You're calling all these judges leftists and communists, but it's a Trump guy. So is Trump's judge a leftist and a communist? And without missing a beat, Stephen Miller says, yeah, because the Federalist Society, they're communist and leftist. Here, play this clip.
That's democracy. So if there's 15 communist crazy judges on the court, that each of them as a team working together can block and freeze each and every executive action. Joe Biden was allowed by that same court system.
Some of them are Trump judges, though.
Illegal foreigners.
Why did Trump put these crazy communist judges, as you call them, on the bench?
You heard President Trump himself say that the Federalist Society and Leonard Leo has created a broken system for judicial vetting. And God knows this time around, we are not going to be using. So does that mean he doesn't support picking Amy Coney Barrett for the Supreme Court? What it means is simply this and nothing more. We're not going to be using the Federal Society to make judicial nominations at all going forward. But let me tell you about these rogue judges. This is the most litigated issue over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, whether or not to deport the foreigners who invaded our country illegally. That is the most litigated issue.
That's why you can't really have a debate or a discussion with them. I mean, they're literally crazy human beings.
Yeah, I just wrote.
They're literally sociopath. They literally are just bad, evil people who will lie and it doesn't even matter. Yeah. The Federalist Society, the people who've enacted your entire agenda, the Project 20, they're the leftist communists. I mean, but there is no way you can have a rational discussion. Like, you're not going to be ever able to convince someone like that of, let's debate and maybe we'll have a good, they're always bad faith. Here's Howard Lutnik attacking the Reagan judge and then saying the Trump judge, blue slip, not really the Trump appointed judge. He goes, not really a Trump appointed judge. And he goes, Reagan was really bad on trade. And so we can trust Reagan appointed judges. Watch Lutnik here, play it.
Was he surprised about this 3-judge panel because it was a Reagan judge, it was a Trump judge, and then it was an Obama judge, and it was a unanimous ruling on this court? Is he surprised by that?
Well, I think, he was not happy with the panel because what you call the Trump judge is just one of these blue slip judges, meaning it was a Democrat judge. It was their seat and he just approved their seat, which is the deal for those kind of things. And while we would love Ronald Reagan, on trade, he just was not a strong trade guy. So, I think the The president saw the panel as weak. He's been through this kind of stuff before. I think he's confident on appeal. He's confident at the Supreme Court. And I think he knows he's going to win because he's got to protect the American people.
And again, it's always done through this. He's got to protect the American people by imposing tariffs on the rest of the world. That doesn't protect me or any of our viewers or anybody. And I can go on and on and on. By taking away our health care, that's not protecting us. By taking away FEMA, that's not protecting us. By disappearing Americans and by disappearing human beings who are just here, don't have to be Americans. That's not protecting. Anyway, we get the point. It's ridiculous. And then Donald Trump posts this long screed that looks like literally emails that I would get sent to me from like 5150 people in like involuntary psychological holds. The U.S. Court of International Trade incredibly blah. Like, don't worry, folks. I'm not going to read this.
Is that one sentence with no punctuation?
Yeah, it's one sentence with no punctuation. And then he goes on and he goes, the Federalist Society. I was new to Washington, and it was suggested that I use the Federalist Society as a recommending source on judges. I did so openly and freely, but then realized that they were under the thumb of a real sleazebag named Leonard Leo, a bad person who in his own way probably hates America and obviously has his own separate ambitions. And he goes on to bash all of the judges he appointed because he says the Federalist Society recommended it, and they are a leftist communist organization. Popok.
So let's dive into that for a moment. And it really is jaw dropping. I don't want to. We talk about a lot of things, and what we have to avoid is our eyes becoming glassy and get Trump fatigue, because we got to stay focused. And as I've said on one of my new one-liners on my hot takes is, we no longer have the luxury of being the silent majority. We have to speak out. And we have to speak truth to each other, and then we have to actually vocalize it and vote on it and run the bastards out on a rail come the midterms. And they are giving us the ammunition in order to do that. Leonard Leo, and I'll tell you who's done an amazing job. It's really their reason for existence is Court Accountability Action over with us on Legal AF. Their main focus is on corruption at the federal court system from all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And one of the main protagonists of that is Leonard Leo, who is this ultra right-wing Catholic shadowy figure that helped co-found and run the Federalist Society, but not just the Federalist Society. There's another half dozen, maybe a dozen interlocking organizations that he funds with about a $2 billion a year war chest that he takes in from not just MAGA, right-wing, religious right-wing, Catholic right-wing sources, and then doles it out. I mean, he is very close with Ginny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, and her organizations, and helps fund those organizations. He helped found the leading ultra right-wing law school in America, which is the Antonin Scalia Law School at George Mason University, which is a training academy and leadership academy for all Federalist judges. And all the judges that Donald Trump has put on, and all the ones that you and I have been talking about for the last 5 years, that they're making some of these decisions in his favor, are primarily Federalist Society club members like Aileen Cannon. And they go to this George Mason University, it's Antonin Scalia, on retreats, both at the school, at hunting lodges, around the country, outside of the country, all bought and paid for by Leonard Leo. Speaking of who is bought and paid for by Leonard Leo, Amy Coney Barrett, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh, who when their various candidacies were on the rocks to be Supreme Court justices, and they took a lot of heat for past positions or their unwillingness to support precedent or unwillingness to support Roe versus Wade. He ran multi-million-dollar ad campaigns in order, he and the National Rifle Association, to get these people on, handpicked by Leonard Leo for Donald Trump to give him a right-wing 6-3 conservative majority or a right-wing majority on the Supreme Court. That's all Leonard Leo, working with Mitch McConnell, then the Senate Democratic majority leader, and to the benefit of Donald Trump. That's how he was able to reshape the face of the Supreme Court and, to a slightly lesser extent, federal courts and appellate courts. Now, Donald Trump's going to have another opportunity to do that again, but apparently he's not going to go along with the Federalist Society on this one. And I know there was some reporting that said, well, he doesn't have as many federal judges to appoint this time around. That's not true. He came into office with 45 openings at the trial court level that Joe Biden just couldn't get filled, and 3 at the appellate court level, which he's now nominated Emil Bove. We'll talk about that in a second. And so he's got those, but that's not the only ones. Through attrition, retirement, and death, he will get another round every month, every few months. And then between now and 2028, 250 judges are going to go senior status. And for every senior status judge, Donald Trump gets 1 pick. So he's going to have 300 plus federal judges. He may have more if we don't stop him at the midterms and MAGA continues to control Congress. Watch them try to give him another 100, another 150, a la Reagan, in order to expand the federal judiciary, giving Donald Trump an unprecedented opportunity. Now, why is there this war that's broken out with the Federalist? Yes, he's on an epic losing streak, Trump. 96% of the cases he's lost, including basically 50-50 at the Supreme Court at this point. So you got that. You've got, being embarrassed by the Court of International Trade and the Trumper there. But that's not the only Trumper, as you pointed out earlier, that's ever voted, or Trump appointee that's ever voted against Donald Trump since the start of this term. We've talked about them at length. They happen all the time because Donald Trump is wrong in the law and wrong in the Constitution. And he doesn't color within the lines of that giant constitutional coloring book. And that's a problem for judges. Okay. So you got that going on. But one of the arguments, and Alex Aronson on Court Accountability Action did a great job on Legal AF about this, tying these things together. And we're going to do another piece with Lisa Graves about it, which is Ed Whelan, who is one of the stalwarts, one of the icons of the Federalist Society, came out publicly against Emil Bove being nominated for the Third Circuit, saying he is unqualified. He is nothing but a partisan hack. This is his words from the National Review on the 30th of May. Whelan had already been attacked by the White House Department of Justice about a week earlier because they were trying to normalize it and socialize Emil Bove being put on the third from the New Jersey seat, so to speak. It covers Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and I think the Virgin Islands. And Donald Trump's attempt to add more right-wingers to these historically moderate or left-leaning circuit courts. So when Whelan came out and attacked, obviously with the blessing of Leonard Leo, because they're very close, and then the Trump administration started to attack Whelan, this was open warfare in public between MAGA, led by Stephen Miller, who's not a lawyer, but plays one in the White House. I'm sad to say he's a Duke University graduate who looks insane and talks it's just kitchen magnet poetry bullshit that comes out of his mouth every time he's interviewed. But he is the number one, I don't want to underestimate my opponent. He is the number one advisor and ear bender for Donald Trump is Stephen Miller. From his perch of being he's a lot of things. He's got a post at Homeland Security. He's got but he's technically the deputy White House chief of staff. And from that role, as a presidential counselor, he sets a lot of the policy for Donald Trump. He took over from Boris Epstein, who took over from Michael Cohen. It's that role. And so it's going to be Stephen Miller picking these judges. Stephen Miller, we think, is the reason Pam Bondi is the Department of Justice head. Todd Blanche is the number 2. Emil Bove was the number 3. And John Sauer was the number 4 in the Department of Justice. So we need to keep a close eye on him. The question is, can we kill the nomination of Emil Bove with all of these things that Ed Whelan had pointed out at the National Review? Certainly the Democrats are going to have to try. Because if we don't draw the line in the sand on Emil Bove, you don't like him, then you're going to hate Supreme Court Justice Alina Habba or federal judge Alina Habba or federal judge and then fill in the blank. Now we see that we can have an impact on even Republican senators who are starting to rebel against Donald Trump at the federal court level when they rejected Donald Trump's original choice, Ed Marks to be the head of the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. So there is a way to peel off some votes here. You only need a couple to get it, so it dies in committee. And we got to try to do the same thing for Emile Bove. It is that important. And then finally, when I watch these clips that you show, like with Howard Lutnik was, and you can look it up, Howard Lutnik was a Democrat who supported Hillary Clinton and everybody else until about 5 years ago. So for him to try to wear the mantle of Ronald Reagan, who he effectively, as Asen said in a posting from the Midas Touch Network, said Reagan is a Republican in name only. He's a rhino, But they're shameless. They are shameless political hacks that will say anything. That's what Donald Trump wants around him, who will say anything in order to show loyalty and fealty to Donald Trump. And that's what we're going to see with his federal court nominees. We're going to see only the ones that he thinks are going to rule in his favor on a litmus test are going to be, and that's scary proposition from now until the end of his term. That's why, once again, I'll just say it out loud because it's important. If we're not successful at beating the Republicans, and this is a referendum on Trump at the midterms. There's no Kamala, there's no Biden, even though he keeps talking about them incessantly. It's just thumbs up or thumbs down on Donald Trump and MAGA and the Republicans. If we don't win back the House and the Senate, we have to win back the House and the Senate in order to have any semblance of checks and balance between now and the end of the term on the way to the 2028 election. Welcome back. That was Legal AF, the podcast. We've been doing it for 5 years. Can you believe that we are now the #1 law and politics podcast on the YouTube podcast rankings that just came out? And that's all a testament to you, our fervent audience, and our support. We really do appreciate you. Watch Legal AF, the podcast on YouTube Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network. And we need more audio downloads. So that helps with the algorithms. So if you can go over to wherever you get your audio podcasts from and download Legal AF, that would help as well. And you're here on the Legal AF YouTube channel. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button, and continue to support what we're doing in terms of independent analysis and commentary here on Legal AF, the YouTube channel, in collaboration with Midas Touch. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.